Hey everyone, welcome back into Small Business Q&A. Tim Knox, your host. Today we are talking about LLCs, limited liability companies. It is one of the most popular types of business formations now, and we're going to talk about whether or not an LLC is right for you. Now, if you remember the last video, we talked about sole proprietorship and how you basically are a sole proprietor when you open your doors and you don't have any formal business formation. That video is available. You can go watch it. Today we are going to talk about LLCs and why you might consider an LLC rather than a sole proprietorship. Now, as always, I have my glasses. I have my notes because when you get my age, you just can't remember anything. So let's just kind of go over these point by point. What is an LLC? An LLC is a limited liability company. It is a business entity that many people use now rather than doing an S Corp or a C Corp, which can be rather paperwork heavy, lots of rules and regulations, a lot of taxation issues. The nice thing about an LLC is it basically acts as a corporation, but the tax structure is much like that of a partnership, where all of the income, the profit and loss, flows through the LLC to the members. Now, the members are what we would call shareholders if it was an official corporate structure. Basically, the LLC is a business entity that is owned by its members. You can have one member. You can be a single member LLC. Maybe that's what you're going to do. You could have more than one person. You could have 2. You could have 10. You could have lots of members in an LLC. You can also have members who are corporations and other LLCs. That's one of the nice things about it. If someone has an LLC and they want to become part of your LLC, they can do so in the name of their LLC. A lot of L's and a lot of C's in there, right? Unlike corporations, though, LLCs are not taxed as separate entities. Now, if you've got a corporation, the corporation is taxed on profit and loss, and then the shareholders can be taxed. With an LLC, that's not the way it works. The LLC is not taxed. All the profits and losses run through the LLC to the federal tax forms of the members. So that makes it pretty convenient to do that. What else? We've got pass-throughs. One thing that's very important is you need to check with your particular state about the rules and regulations governing LLCs. There may be some things there that we don't cover here. Big disclaimer, I am not a corporate tax attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm just an entrepreneur who knows enough to be dangerous. So check with your state to make sure that the rules and regulations governing LLCs are something that you're aware of and something that you can abide with. So what is the process for setting up an LLC? Very simple. There's really only 3 steps. The first is you've got to come up with the name of your LLC, and you have to make sure that someone is not already using that name in your state. You can typically do that by calling the Secretary of State and say, hey, I'm thinking about naming my LLC Tim Knox LLC. Is that available? If it is, they will reserve that name for you. There may be an annual charge for doing so, but it's a nominal fee, $100 or whatever. So you want to come up with a name, make sure the name is available, and then reserve that name with the Secretary of State. The worst thing that could happen to you is your LLC become very popular and very successful, and then someone open right across the street with the same name. Same way as you don't want to start an LLC with the name of someone else, therefore there can only be one per state. So talk to your Secretary of State. You can find the phone number online, I'm sure. Choose the business name and get it reserved. A couple of things that do regulate the name of the LLC. For example, it can't be the same as anyone else. You must use those letters, LLC, in the formal name of the business. Okay, you can't say Tim Knox Incorporated or Tim Knox Enterprises. LLC must be part of the name. And third, you cannot use what they call restricted words in the name of your company. Words like bank or insurance, generic words that you cannot use. Now, you can certainly use, if you're an insurance agency, you can use the word agency, but they do frown on you using common words or what they call restricted words. Again, check with your state. It may be different where you live. I'm basically going on what I have experienced here in the state of Alabama. After you come up with a name and you reserve it, you need to file your articles of organization. This is basically a document that outlines the organization. You are saying, okay, we are hereby founding blah, blah, blah LLC. You can get an attorney to do this. You can use LegalZoom, a few $100s there over. The last time I had an attorney form an LLC was almost $2,000. LegalZoom charges $300 or $400, and they'll do all your state filings and everything. You can do it yourself. You can get a form, I think, from most Secretary of States, and you basically just fill that out and file that with the Secretary of State, and that formalizes the LLC wherever you happen to be. The third thing you want to do is create an operating agreement. Now, an operating agreement is not necessary, but it is highly, 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 highly recommended, because this is the document that details what you do, what the LLC does, the product or service. More importantly, it talks about the members, the ownership, the percentage, the allocation of profit and loss, the who's going to do what, the rights and responsibilities. Basically, the operating agreement is something I recommend highly that you have, because, as things often do, if the LLC goes south and ends in lawsuits, you're going to want that operating agreement there, and you want it to be formal and on your side. Some of the advantages of the LLC, of course, the biggest one is the protection, the limited liability protection that you are given, because when people do business with you now, they're really doing business with the LLC, not with you as an individual. So if there is an issue, your personal liability is very limited, because most of the liability, if not all, will go to the LLC. There's less record keeping than with corporations. I've had S Corps and C Corps, and they are a bitch to take care of when it comes to paperwork. And yes, that is a business term. The other thing is, when you've got an LLC, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want with the profits and losses. You can distribute them as you see fit, as agreed upon in the membership agreement. Some of the disadvantages, in many states, when a member leaves an LLC, the LLC must close unless the members have come up with alternate things to do in the operating agreement. For example, if you are in an LLC with a member and they want to leave, maybe there's a buyout clause, or what happens to that member's shares when they leave. That's where the operating agreement really comes in handy. You should also address things like, if a member does want to leave, how much are their shares worth? How much do you have to give them to go? There needs to be things about, fair market value and valuation of the business. What happens if a member dies? Does that member's shares go to their heirs, who you may or may not want to be in business with? That's why the operating agreement is so vital. All right, so that's really it. An LLC gives you the limited liability of a corporation while offering you all of the tax structure of a partnership or a single proprietorship. Again, check with your state. This is not gospel. I'm not preaching from the mount. I am just telling you what I know based on my experience, and this should be applicable in most states. But if you check with your Secretary of State, they will tell you, hey, Tim is right, or Tim is full of LLC. So, all right, so that's going to do it. That should give you enough information, at least to get started on the road to considering your own LLC. Hey, don't forget, I do these videos 2 or 3 times a week, time and my dogs permitting. Click that subscribe button down there and you will be notified when I do release a new video. Also, the email address is somewhere up there, tim@timknox.com, if you've got a question you would like me to answer. And visit my website, timknox.com. You'll also find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of those wonderful social media outlets. Okay, that's going to do it. Tim Knox here, Small Business Q&A. I will see you next time.